And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house with Evan. Evan, how are we doing today, my friend? Really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise. And this is a big topic. So
Hmm.
you got hundreds of millions of pounds of glyphosate being sprayed on our beautiful Mother Earth every year. It's terrible how much is being sprayed. If you look at the stats, they just go up and up and up and up and up. And we have GMO corn and soybean accounting for the major places that people are being sprayed. So if you're simply just cutting out
Yep.
those foods from your diet and you're eating animals that don't feed on the soybean and corn, you've already done a great job. But that's not enough, because I recently spoke with Stephanie Seneff, who's been educating and researching about glyphosate, and she's talked about, which you and I've known for a long time, but it's good to hear somebody else validate the research, is it's in the water supply, it's in the food, it's in the air, it's everywhere. So we really have to put in a detox protocol ongoing to be able to deal with this, because even parts per billion levels of glyphosate act as an antibiotic and will kill beneficial bacteria in the gut. And you and I, we don't necessarily call ourselves GI specialists, but we are when it comes to naturally approaching gut infections and restoring gut integrity and gut health. And part of that is getting the glyphosate out of the system so we can truly allow our beneficial bacteria to thrive. So that's kind of the setting the stage of where we're going today.
Exactly. So glyphosate is essentially Roundup, right? It's essentially Roundup. It's a pesticide. So essentially how it works, it's a mineral chelator. So what it does is it basically rips away or kind of is a magnet of all the chelate of all the minerals away from the plant. And so essentially by robbing the plant of all those minerals, it essentially kills it. Is that the major mechanism and how that works?
Yeah, it inhibits the photosynthesis. I don't know the full chemistry behind it, but yeah, basically it starves the plant to death. And then the byproduct or the process of doing that, you're robbing and basically cleaving off these amino acids. And that's the problem. And that's why it's going to end up in joints and everywhere else in the body, because the body's trying to basically absorb the minerals, if you will, but by accident, it's absorbing the glyphosate. So it's number one thing is you got to go organic to get away from it. But the problem is, if you're not filtering your water, if you're not filtering your air, you're probably still getting exposure there. Or if you eat out at restaurants, which even I and you and I, we try to do the best we can if we eat out, but we may get exposed to trace amounts there. And kids too. I mean, you send the kid with a school lunch that's organic, but if you don't, they're probably getting exposed to it there. And this stuff accumulates over time. And as Stephanie was talking about with me, the individual parts, meaning like a little bit of glyphosate here, it's a problem. But when you mix it with the dicamba and the 2,4-D and all these other chemicals and the xylene and the gasoline additive chemicals and the plastics and the phthalates and the BPA and the other endocrine disruptors, that's when you really get into trouble. So it's important to hyper focus on one chemical like this, but I want people to just know it's the sum that really creates the problem. And you and I measure for this on the urine. So if people listening are like, well, what do I do? How do I investigate this problem? You simply do a urine sample and we can measure this. And the fun part is when we get people on a detox protocol and we retest, you can see the levels go down. And in a lot of cases, we get the levels to ND, non-detectable limits. That's the most exciting part. So I want to inspire hope with this too. Some of the stats are really depressing on it, but there is hope that you can get this stuff out of your body.
100%. And so the mechanism of how it works is it's a chelator. It pulls that away. It also affects the protein synthesis of the plants. There's a pathway there. It's called the shikimic. It's kind of a funny name. The shikimic pathway that affects, essentially the protein synthesis of these plants. So it disrupts that. It does it by disrupting protein synthesis, and it does it by chelating away a lot of these important minerals. And then I think that's part of the reason why a lot of foods that are grown in Roundup where glyphosate is used on them, I think you're going to also see a decrease in nutrient levels. Part of the means why is because it's chelating a lot of those minerals away from the plants. And if plants don't have adequate minerals in the soil, I know there's data on it, like when there's less manganese in the soil, the vitamin C production in that plant is less, for instance. So we do know there's a disruption, there's a correlation with low minerals in the soil can have a major impact on the nutrient production by that plant as well. And so there's a nutrient issue on one side, and there's also a toxicity issue. And we can go deeper into that. Any questions on that?
So the big problem with people is here's one of the mechanisms, and people can check out the podcast. I mean, we don't have to get into the advanced chemistry. I mean, some of the stuff even goes over my head, but basically one of the big problems is glyphosate is pretending to be glycine. And that's what she talked about. Basically, it's your body
Which
is
is an
looking
amino
for,
acid.
right. So it's looking for glycine, but then it sucks up glyphosate in place of it.
Right.
And that's where you get into trouble.
Yeah, you kind of similar to what may happen in your body with iodine and fluoride, for instance, or bromine, right? It'll suck up your thyroid, will suck up a lot of those nutrients, which can impact its function because it's not the primary nutrient it's looking for.
And then here's what it says. Advocates claim that glyphosate is not harmful to humans as the shikimate pathway does not occur in humans. But the truth is glyphosate enters our gut and primarily targets the good bacteria. And then that's when you get the bacterial overgrowth. So that's kind of what the industry will counteract, and they'll say, well, humans don't have shikimate pathways. That's why it's not dangerous. But the mechanism is that it's killing the good bacteria in the gut. And it's really an antibiotic, disguised as an herbicide. And so that's the problem.
Yeah. I think the big thing that if you look at some of the studies on the topic where they look at glyphosate's impact on the gut lining and the brush border in the small intestine, the brush border is what secretes a lot of enzymes and aids in digestion. And if you just look at the thinning out of the gut lining in the small intestine, and you look at the increase in gut permeability that can happen from that, all of those type of mechanisms are part of what's driving a lot of autoimmunity. So when you have increased gut permeability, weakened gut lining, you have a imbalance in the healthy bacteria in the guts, all of those tilt your immune system in the direction of autoimmunity. It tilts your immune system in the direction of lack of nutrient absorption, which then affects the immune system as well. So all of these things compound, right? Gut bacteria imbalanced, dysbiosis, right? More bad bacteria than good. Gut permeability, increased autoimmunity, increased food allergens, less nutrient density. Obviously, if you're eating plants that have a lot of Roundup, there may be less nutrients in those plants, right? So all of those things just kind of spiral out of control. And typically, if you're consuming the big foods that are going to have the highest residue, they're going to be a lot of your grains, right? Grains and soy and corn and wheat and all those things. So if you're eating a lot of those foods, that's a lot of processed food anyway.
Yeah. And that's why you and I talk about a lot of people feel so much better on like grain-free or more paleo template, because not only are they getting rid of the allergenic foods, but they're getting rid of the chemicals too, because everything is so heavily sprayed. Now, one of Stephanie's arguments, which was interesting, was that the people are having so much gluten sensitivity is because of the glyphosate. And so she told me she actually eats organic wheat and she feels totally fine. And I said, well, what about gluten and zonulin and all that? And she goes, I don't know if that's the full story because I feel fine, but feeling fine, I don't know. I'd like to see like a stool test, right? Look at gut inflammation and all that and try to confirm and look at gluten antibodies, because I still, even if it's organic, you and I are still not going to recommend people going into the grains.
100%. And then also the other element of this whole thing is, what about glyphosate when it's heated up? What if you have glyphosate residue on certain foods and then you're cooking or heating those foods up? What does that do to it? Because I know there's some data out there showing that a lot of these pesticides become more toxic when they're heated. So that's another area, another avenue of discussion. Probably not a lot of data on it, but definitely a lot of theoretical, well, what if that does make it worse? And so that's definitely a concern. So, out of the gates, I think the big thing people can control is going to be water and runoff. So everyone should have at least a reverse osmosis water filter to filter a lot of the Roundup glyphosate out of that, so you're not getting exposed via water. And then number two is do your best to eat organic, or if you're on a budget, try to do at least Clean 15. These are going to be the foods that are going to have a relative peel over it, right? Avocado, banana, those kind of things that will decrease the amount of residue because it's a peel, and they just going to have less of the glyphosate anyway. And so try to do at least the Clean 15 and then avoid the Dirty Dozen, if you will, but try to go organic, free range as much as you possibly can, because it's not just the nutrient density that's important with organic, it's the decrease in toxic load. There's both. You win twice. You win with nutrient density and you decrease toxic load. I think it was I had Joel Salatin on my podcast last year, and he talked about his eggs that are pasture fed, and he sent a bunch of conventional eggs to the grocery store, and to a lab. So conventional eggs he bought at the grocery store to his own pasture eggs in his backyard at his farm, right? And he compared the nutrient levels of it. And so he just compared one nutrient, folate, and he found that his eggs had 19 times more folate than the conventional eggs, 19 times. So if you look at it as like, wow, I'm getting 19 times of an important nutrient and maybe the eggs cost twice as much. Well, that's kind of a pretty good deal. That's a pretty good ROI in your investment there.
It is. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I need to interview him. He's awesome. And I love his books and love seeing the farming videos. A lot of people, I know he has like students, they'll do all the work for him. He's got an amazing setup because he pays like zero labor costs because everybody wants to learn. So he's got all these people like harvesting his chickens for him.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet gig. So yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's good for everyone to understand that, to know about it, to be on top of that, and to look at your food differently, right? You got to look at it like, all right, I'm decreasing the toxic load side. That's a one important big vector. And then I'm increasing the nutrient density side. And if you look at it like that, I think you go into the grocery store and you make different food choices. I think it was Michael Pollan talked about this in his the book Omnivore's Dilemma. As a society today, we allocate way less of our income towards food. I think it's like 9% of our income goes towards food as a society. And I think it was 50 to 100 years ago, it was twice that. It was 18%. And so people prioritize food a lot more from an income standpoint. They're willing to put more of their money where it counts. And today, that's not the case. And so I just think it's really important that people really look at allocating their money towards food because that's the foundation of everything. Especially once you get sick, you're going to really wish you did.
Well, let's take it a step further too. So you got the glyphosate in or out of the picture in your diet. And now not only are you getting, as you mentioned, potentially 19 times more folate and who knows, a lot more B vitamins and other nutrients, but now you're also getting all these different amino acids, which are going to fuel your neurotransmitters. So you're going to be happier.
Yep.
You're going to be able to tolerate stress better. You're going to be less depressed. You're possibly going to have better sleep. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. So you're going to perform better at work. You're going to be a better parent because you have enough nutrients to stabilize your blood sugar. So you're not hangry. So I love how you kind of illustrated that you're not just getting less toxin, more nutrition, you're really getting a whole better human. And that's going to extrapolate that out to your friends, your family, your boss, your spouse, everything gets better. So it's tough when you see people that, like, even the other day, we drove past a Popeye's chicken, and that's probably like the lowest quality fast food you could get. Maybe there's something worse, McDonald's or something, but we'll see like a brand new Range Rover, $100,000 vehicle, and they're in the drive-through parking lot getting like a $2 lunch, but they've got $100,000 car. It's like, you got to just focus on the good stuff. I'd rather drive, like I did for years, when I had my 1992 Honda Accord, I was still buying the pastured bison, grass-fed beef steaks, all organic vegetables. Even though I had a $4,000 car, I probably spent $4,000 a year on high quality groceries.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of it is an education thing, getting people to reprioritize kind of where they're at. I think that's number one out of the gates. And then two is just really educating people on the benefits, right? It's like, it's all about value. So the big thing today that we're kind of hammering on is the glyphosate component, how that affects your gut lining, how that affects dysbiosis, how that affects nutrient absorption, how that affects your immune system, because 80% of your immune system's in the gall and the malt and the stomach and the small intestine. So all these play a major role. And we know that autoimmune conditions are on the rise, right? The massive amount of increase in autoimmune conditions, 150 least different conditions that are out there now. And we know gut permeability plays a major role. We know gluten, we know Roundup, we know gut bacterial imbalance plays a major role. So if we know the mechanisms, then we can work on creating an execution plan to help relieve that.
Yeah, there's several charts online. You could just look this up yourself. You could type in autism glyphosate and you could see some of the correlation, not necessarily causation, but definitely the correlation charts where you'll see the autism rates skyrocket exponentially along with the exponential use of glyphosate. And, Stephanie's talked about this many times. Dr. Kurt Wohler, he's hit on this. He's done many great presentations on autism and has some courses all about that. And one of the integral pieces of his protocols, I know, is detox. So let's talk about that. What do you actually do? You and I have many, many before and after on ourselves personally, but also clinical case studies where I've seen literally thousands of percentile off the chart. I mean, levels so high that the lab can't even give you a range for it. And we've been able to take those people and significantly reduce it, especially in children. I've seen kids that are 4, 5, 6 years old off the charts with 2,4-D glyphosate and many other of the organophosphate pesticides. And holy crap, it's scary when you first look at it. You look at the symptoms, you look at the gut, you look at the skin, you look at the behavioral problems. But man, within 6 months to a year, I'm confident most people listening could clear out 90+% of their chemical load.
Yep, 100%. I think it's super important to be empowered like that. So you hit a couple of the big mechanisms there. So I think one of the first things people have to look at is when there's stress, there's going to be indigestion, right? There's going to be some level of bloating or gas or just not breaking a lot of the nutrients down. And we have to look at what are the nutrients we need to run a lot of these pathways. You kind of hit some right there, but we need amino acids. We need a lot of sulfur. We need a lot of the sulfur-rich cruciferous vegetables. We need a lot of B vitamins. We need a lot of antioxidants. So if we're eating nutrient poor food, we're not going to get those. We also need a lot of good, high quality sulfur-based amino acids. And when, from our healthy pasture-fed eggs and animal products. And if we're not eating those things and breaking them down optimally, then we're going to have problems. We're not going to be able to get the amino acids to make our powerful glutathione to help with our B vitamins and our methylation and acetylation, glucuronidation, our phase 1 cytochrome P450, our phase 2 cytochrome P450 oxidase pathways that require on the phase 1 B vitamins and antioxidants, phase 2, all the sulfur amino acids to run those pathways.
Yeah, and the glyphosate messes up that P450, that cytochrome P450 pathway too. So that was another mechanism that gets screwed up. And even if you have the nutrients in to fuel that pathway, if you've got a big roadblock there, or you mentioned the glucuronidation pathway, that's another issue. We've done podcasts on this, but the spark notes, the long story short for people listening is when you have bacterial overgrowth in your gut, which could be traced back to glyphosate exposure, damaging your good bacteria, therefore allowing the dysbiosis to happen. That then messes up this enzyme, which is the beta glucuronidase enzyme, which we test for via stool. Now you're recirculating hormones and recirculating toxins. So like, Justin and I will do protocols where we may throw in something like calcium D-glucarate to inhibit that enzyme, but we have to work backwards in fixing the gut. So all this could be traced back to your glyphosate exposure.
Correct.
Sounds
Yep,
crazy.
that's correct.
It sounds crazy to think like, wow, me eating conventionally sprayed toxic strawberries led to my depression and my anxiety, but there's the link of how it can all go down.
Correct. So we talk about a lot of the key nutrients, right? We talked about the glutathione. We talked about the antioxidants. Also, if we have a lot of inflammation happening in the brain, well, what do we do? So of course we have powerful antioxidants like glutathione. We have, it's a twofold, right? Because it also helps with the pathways of elimination, but it's also a powerful antioxidant. So it deals with a lot of the oxidative stress that happens from these toxins. We also have things like vitamin Z. We have things like curcuminoid compounds, resveratrol, ginkgo, bacopa, things that have anti-inflammatory, cognitive enhancement benefits. Because a lot of times what we have is we have this immune response that's overreactive, that's stimulated in the brain. We have our immune cells called microglial cells in the brain that are overstimulated. And so a lot of times we have to attenuate that and get that kind of calm down and relax, because it's in this positive feedback loop. Is once it starts getting ramped up and ramped up and ramped up and ramped up, it's kind of at this arching level of it. It's continuing to increase. And if we can calm that down with powerful antioxidant compounds, while we also stop adding fuel to the fire with a lot of these toxins and pesticides, that's going to help us a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big heavy lifters, we won't say the names because who knows, in the future our ideas and thoughts may change. So we'll be putting some links in the show notes on your app to where you can view these products. But let's break down some of the nutrients, at least in the products, in case we come out with our own or we come out with better versions in the future or something. The biggest heavy lifter, I would say, is definitely going to be chlorella, and specifically as opposed to the conventionally sold, mass marketed, what's called broken cell wall chlorella, which is decent. We like to use one that's called a micronized chlorella, which is extremely small molecules of chlorella that is able to get across the blood-brain barrier. That's the magic sauce that most chlorella products fall short. And I literally have 100 case studies where I could show you a before and after of getting children and adults on these products. And we've been able to massively reduce the levels. I had a woman in Canada just last week. She was off the chart with nearly every chemical: gasoline, xylene, phthalates, pesticides, herbicides, 2,4-D, glyphosate, the whole 9 yards. And within 6 months to a year of doing some of this stuff, her levels are now non-detected in a lot of categories. She's not fully out of the woods. If we could get her in a sauna, which is another way to help with glyphosate, I think she would speed it up. But just the chemical detox alone using nutrients massive success.
Wow. I love that. I love it. Yeah. Like you mentioned, binders, we have different chlorella. We have different, maybe activated charcoal or bentonite clay compounds. We have a kind of our own formulated products that we love. We'll put the links down below. We have a lot of the glutathione or glutathione sulfur amino acid precursor building blocks. Those are really powerful. We have a lot of liver tonifying and supporting herbs to help with liver and gallbladder, whether it's milk thistle or dandelion or phosphatidylcholine. We have a lot of those nutrients that we've kind of formulated up. And I think then outside of that would be, we hit some of the B vitamins, the binders, we hit some of the tonifying herbs, glutathiones, sulfur amino acid. I think we hit all the major ones out of the gates. I would just say there's some different liposomal curcumins and resveratrol and anti-inflammatory compounds that we're looking at that really have great clinical benefits. Also binders on the activated charcoal with zeolite, citrus pectin side. So we'll put some of our links to products that we're personally using with ourselves, patients and family and clinically every day. And we're kind of looking at the results that we're getting and trying to always adjust it so it's the best. We'll put those down below. Anything else, Evan, you want to add today?
Yeah, so the MCP, the modified citrus pectin, that's something we can use, and we'll often use that in a blend. And then fulvic and humic acids, those tend to do really, really good too. I don't like those in isolation. So a lot of people have really jumped on kind of the fulvic acid train. I think it's smart. I think they're great, but I've seen before and after test results, and I haven't been super impressed in isolation. So we might use those fulvic and humic acids quite a bit, but it's going to be in a blend. It's not going to be by itself. We're going to have the chlorella, maybe the cilantro, as you mentioned, milk thistle, other liver support, maybe lymphatic support thrown in there too, infrared sauna, rebounding, anything you can do to sweat, hot baths, Epsom salt to where you can boost that sulfur pathway, fixing the gut, getting the gut infections addressed so you can get that glucuronidation pathway working better, doing the testing on your stool to see where your gut is, if your system's even working properly to do the detox. And then obviously doing the before and after chemical testing. And I will tell you, there's not a single non-toxic human on the planet unless they've done a really great job with chemical detox. But just coming in, your average person coming into us with complaints, doing the testing, you're going to have chemical levels off the chart. I only had one guy who came to me over hundreds and hundreds of chemical profiles who didn't have much of anything. And this was a guy who was doing a sauna for almost an hour, 5 times a week. And I was like, whoa, you're proof that a sauna excretes a lot. So everyone else, they were pretty much off the chart.
I had a patient just recently too, did a sauna session, and this person had high level of mercury. And then kind of one of the biggest things I preach is have a good sulfur soap that's going to decrease that lipid barrier, and get a quick shower right afterwards so you can get all the chemicals and stuff off your skin that are fat soluble, metals and such, toxins. Make sure you do that as soon as possible. This person waited, I think, 10 to 15 minutes. And during that time frame, that next day, they had a major Herxheimer's issue. And my concern is if you don't get those toxins off your skin fast, there's a great chance you're going to reabsorb them. And then you're going to reabsorb them at a very high level. And that can create a lot of Herxheimer. So you got to be very careful if you're using an infrared sauna. You want to flush those toxins off your skin fast and make sure you're really hydrating well. And you may even want to go into that sauna session with binders and glutathione before and during, just in case you reabsorb some of those toxins.
Yeah, that's great advice. And that's why a lot of people recommend like a cold, like water plunge or a cold shower afterwards. So you can really just seal up, get those goosebumps, get your pores sealed up to where everything runs off. I know for me, it was crazy because I was kind of skeptical. I thought, are you really reabsorbing stuff? So I did kind of a warm shower with soap, and then I did a cold shower, and who knows, maybe it was all the benefits of cold in general. But I tell you, I feel so much better with a cold shower after the sauna. As brutal as it is to put that thing all the way on cold, especially in the winter, it's cold, but man, I feel like $1 million after that.
Yep. No, I think that's smart. So I urge patients, if you're going to do an infrared sauna, which I think is powerful, just kind of start with 5 or 10 minutes, do a quick shower afterwards, have a good soap ready that can kind of cut that lipid bilayer. Because remember, a lot of these toxins are going to be fat based. They're going to be fat soluble toxins. So it's like, imagine cleaning a pan that you just had bacon in, right, with just water. You need that emulsifying Dawn soap or whatever organic soap to kind of cut that friction off the pan and allow that grease to kind of come off you, right? If you don't, you'll feel that greasiness afterwards. Well, it's the same thing with these fat soluble toxins. You really want to use that soap, emulsify what's on your skin so it's flushed off so you don't reabsorb it later.
Yeah, and you made a good point. I'll just take it a step further on the hydration piece and the mineral balance piece. If you've got adrenal issues, mineral imbalances, electrolyte problems, thyroid issues, sleep issues, you're chronically sleep deprived, you're just kind of a weak constitution, you got to be careful and go slow and steady with the sauna. If you get woozy, you get lightheaded, if you do pass out or you feel like you're going to pass out, your heart's racing uncontrollably, you're getting heart palpitations, you're going to know you're mobilizing too much. So when your body's saying stop, stop, don't push through. I made the mistake of pushing through one time. It took me like 2 to 3 days to recover. So don't do that.
Yep, 100%. Well, I like it. Guys, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please feel free to put it down in the comments. Let us know what you liked about it. Let us know your own experiences dealing with chemical detoxification and a lot of the pesticides and chemicals we chatted about today. We'll put links down to our favorite products, detoxification support, water filters, things that are going to decrease toxin load in your body, and things that are going to help your body expel toxins better. And guys, if you enjoyed today's podcast, feel free to head over to evanbrand.com or justinhealth.com. We are available worldwide to help you all out. If you need that extra functional medicine, nutrition support, we are here as well. Evan, anything else?
No, that's it. You covered it all. And thanks for listening.